Welcome, process management experts, to the 5th Best Practice in Process Management video post. I'm Mirko, and today with me is Michael. He's the head of our management system operations at Lufthansa Technik. And we would like to present the results of the 4th Best Practice in Process Management workshop that we performed a few weeks ago. The topic was process management roles. And we had participants from different organizations, like an organization from aviation, for sure. Okay, we participated in the workshop. From defense, from manufacturing, engineering were participating in the workshop. And within, we discussed a wide range of questions concerning process management roles. But in the end, we tried to summarize our findings based on 3 major questions. The first one was which roles are necessary to operate the processes, and then the second one was which roles are necessary to operate the system itself, so the roles in the background, and finally we talked about how to connect processes and structure in the system. And quite interesting findings. So let's have a look onto the first topic. Which roles are necessary to manage processes? Michael, would you like to explain the findings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was in workshop number 3 that we found that among the companies that were represented in the workshops, it was quite common to distinguish between 2 main levels when it comes to the question of the level of detail. The first one was the process map. Sometimes we had cases where we had a given number of levels. In other cases, there was no limitation to the amount of process maps that you could have in the system before you reached the second level, the more detailed level of the process description, where you would have the combination of roles and activities giving you more detail about the question who is doing what in the process. And what we found in the workshop we are talking about right now was that the definition of ownership of those levels was different among the companies that participated in the workshops. We had a case, in a case this was Lufthansa Technik, where we had the role process owner, and that was responsible for both the process map and the process description. We had a case where we had a divided responsibility. The process owner, as it was called here, was only responsible for the top level of the process map, and below that you would have the process responsible when it came to more level of details. And
more or less completely different approach was to separate the definition between global process owner on the one hand side, responsible for the processes defined in the headquarter, and the local process owner on the other hand, responsible for all the small gaps that were filled locally, but on the whole scale, from highest level of detail, process maps, down to process descriptions. So completely different approach compared to the other ones. What else? I think the other ones are somehow comparable. We had another example where the owner of the highest process map was called process domain owner. That was defined for just the major processes, core processes of the company. And this process domain ownership was assigned to the management board, or board of directors of the company. And on the lower levels, they had process owners and process experts defined. They were responsible for example, the definition of the processes. And
when it comes to the tasks that were assigned to all these roles, they were comparable. First of all, of course, the main task would be to define the process. The layout And that applies to both, of course, the process map as well as the more detailed process descriptions.
Right.
And also another task would be, of course, to define the process objectives, the targets that you were trying to reach by defining the process, and the corresponding performance indicators that would give you an idea of whether you really reached the targets that you defined for your process.
Yeah. In addition to these tasks, the process owner, or whoever is the owner of the level of detail we're talking about, was responsible to define the qualifications of the participants of the process, the employees that perform the process. And based on the performance indicators that were defined, the process owner had to monitor process accomplishment on a global level, for example. And he was responsible in all the different examples for the improvement of the process, and he had, or she had to make sure that the documentation was up to date. Mm-hmm. So comparable tasks, but different definitions of the roles. And I think that's the most important out of this discussion. Please be careful whenever you talk to somebody else from another organization and you're using your own definition. And in our case, this would always be the process owner. The other one could have a completely different understanding of that role, because this role could be only responsible for the highest level or just for smaller parts of the picture. So make sure that you both talk about the same definition of the role. Even if the tasks are somehow comparable, in the reality, they might be different. So there is no common definition that we were able to identify.